Hello everyone, so Sanjeet this side. We are back with another episode. We have Tristan here, and we are kind of diving into the marketing expertise he brings to on the table. So Tristan, welcome to the podcast.
Thank you so much for having me. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, everyone. Tristan Lombard here, and I was asked today by Sanjeet here. I do a number of different expertise in marketing, but specifically today, what brought us to this podcast was a conversation around founder-led marketing and social media. So today we're specifically going to be talking about LinkedIn because that's where your decision makers are, but before you even dive into any of that, y'all are probably like, who is this crazy person? Why is it so early in this time of the world? I know. So my name is Tristan Lombard. I have a background 7+ years in tech, a mixture of test automation space, software development, and also the Salesforce ecosystem. I run my own business now. We're not here to sell you, unlike a lot of the interviews that you may watch in the Salesforce ecosystem. But today, I'm really here to talk to you all about what founder-led social media marketing looks like, some tips and tricks, because we never do sessions that you're not having pragmatic takeaways, and then also, why is this important to help y'all scale your businesses, services, delivery, whatever you want. But outside of just doing founder-led social media marketing, I also do website development, ghost author technical blogs, manage a ton of corporate social media accounts, event production, strategy, design, sales enablement, marketing ops, anything that you really need from end to end. And I also dabble in some community strategy because that's where I spend a lot of my time, being a stage mom to 400+ developers, founders in the software and Salesforce ecosystem.
Great. Thanks for the lovely introduction. I think you do a lot. Yeah, you have a lot in your plate.
Some skills too.
I'd like to start with probably what led you to help founders with end-to-end marketing, and what led your way here.
Yeah, I mean, I come from a social work background. I spent 7 years in nonprofit before I got into tech, and a big part of my job was managing a 60+ caseload of homeless youth, specifically with an Axis 1 diagnosis, schizophrenia, bipolar. And then when I decided it was time just to go into tech and take my social work values with me, helping people present their value and amplify their voice, that was something I always cared about. But I had a specific developer, my very, very first House of Stage Mom member, Titus Fortner, if you're watching, I love you. And he was struggling to present himself in a way that was not too antagonistic to the community. I love him so much. He's a little rabble rouser and an amazing leader. And so kind of helping stage mom him, mentor him, help him, communicate this talk on page objects for the open source Selenium meetup group in San Francisco that I used to run. That really kind of got me going. And then I became a stage mom mentor to all of these different developers in my own org, in the local community. And then the global panini happened, and I was working at another company, and our social media manager left. And when you're on those calls, dear readers, and everyone's kind of looking at you because no one wants to pick up that one job duty that the other person left behind. And they're like, oh, Tristan's on social, he's social, he could run our social media, account. And I was like, oh God. And so I said, okay, sure, happy to be here. And then I started running corporate social media brands, and then I really saw the need for this. I've been an interim co-CMO during a leadership interim for a company. So I just started understanding the mechanics of marketing. I've been doing community for years, so, building out developer and test automation, technical forums, customer advisory boards, meetups, conferences, etc. But it was all always within the marketing budget. And so, like many people during the global panini, I decided to do something different, and so I decided to start my own company, and I was like, let's see what happens. And I really, really, really saw a need for women and developer-led startups, consultancies, and helping them amplify their voices online We know per CEO.com, where, this is specifically for enterprise organizations, but enterprise organizations where CEOs are active on social media, we see a 26% increase in stock value versus those that don't. So we know there's a fiscal reason for this. You've seen Benioff get on LinkedIn for the first time. You've seen the CEO of Hootsuite posting. So we're seeing a huge movement of CEOs and founders on LinkedIn sharing, their brands of value. And I don't know, this is just one of the things that they ask for. After we talk about marketing operations, demand gen, pipeline, this is always the second thing that they ask for with me. So that's kind of how I got into women in developer, founder-led marketing. People just want it, they need it. And I think for me, it's kind of a beautiful space to help those leaders who might be a little bit more, I'm not going to button up my collar because I don't like to, but they are. And so kind of helping them unbutton one and be more vulnerable, share value, and endear people to them and consequently to their products and services. So yeah, that was a long answer. You're welcome, society.
That was a great answer. I think you're mastering that field, right? And I think founders being out there on social media definitely impacts, and you can also present like a thought leadership, and you can highlight the area of your expertise, and everybody kind of knows where to go when they need help on that one. So why do you think founders should be on social media, apart from the couple of things I spoke about? You definitely have more insight on this area, right? So why do you think that founders should be on a social media, and they should engage more frequently? What results have you seen in your career so far?
Mm-hmm. Well, there's a difference between posting and engaging, and I want to make sure that we're clear on that. Engaging means actually following up with the posts that you write people. Whereas posting is just putting your thoughts out in there. I'm always about meeting clients where they're at for continuous positive change back when I was in social work, and I apply those skills in my many years in tech now. At an early stage, you are going to be doing more posts, and then you might get to like a comment, but eventually you will engage and you will comment on others. But to your point, what is the value? So the value first is going to be visibility. So a lot of times I work with these founders and they're in kind of like a spotlight effect. They think that everyone knows about their products and services and offerings. They don't. And so they forget that you have to build a brand of value, aka a LinkedIn presence. Mm-hmm. And so part of that is starting to get them to post. To answer your initial part of the question around why are we seeing this kind of trend, we're seeing this trend because, one, we've seen a huge shift of people move from digital spaces like Twitter, and a lot of people are on LinkedIn right now, and so LinkedIn has kind of become a convergence, right? We're seeing some of that Facebook material that you're like, why is this on LinkedIn? This is a professional site. Sorry, I don't make the rules. You got to ride the wave. Do you want to sell your services? Do you want to sell your own brand? I don't make the rules. So we're seeing that huge uptick there. And then why is it important? This is about not just visibility of your products and services, it's also about credibility, because people don't know what you do in the ecosystem, right? What your services are, what your unique differentiators are. It's also a good way for you to control the message. This is one of your distribution channels. So oftentimes we think about email capture only. That's not just it. We think about that via newsletter, signups on our webpage, product services. No. This is another distribution channel that gets your brand of value for yourself and then in terms the company. It's also good because it can be a great source for crisis, and we'll talk about that later. How do you deal with a PR nightmare? And it's also good too for trust. I was reading a stat the other day, and it was from a consultant group, and it said that people are 6 times more likely to trust a corporate brand if they know that the CEO or founder of it is active on social media. So trust is a big part of that.
Definitely, I think once you and we are all humans, right? So we kind of want to know the story behind the organization, right? It's not just a product that sells; it's the story that sells, right? So storytelling is kind of very important when it comes to branding aspect of it. I got it right, right? I've learned something from you. You're on mute, Tristan.
Boop. Can you hear me now? Okay, great.
Yeah.
I will, though, apologize to everyone because raise your hand if you've seen all of those. I'm a digital storyteller. I'm like, I know I live on the first floor, but I will throw myself out. Like, I roll to the back of my head. So yes, storytelling matters, but I really think it's about controlling the narrative. That's really what it comes down to. You're creating, scaling, and controlling the narrative. More syllables do matter sometimes. Back to you.
Yeah, can you like elaborate a bit on the narrative part of it?
Yeah. So the narrative is, I'm going to be cautious because this is a recording. It can look different. So I'm going to give you a situation. So you may see someone talking about a shortage in labor. So they're creating a false scarcity. And then they're talking about how their service addresses that false scarcity. Then they're talking about how customers have gotten value via use cases, and then they're re-amplifying those that have bought into that narrative. It's brilliant, but that is creating, scaling, and controlling the narrative.
Got it. Got it. Understood. And with my next question, I think we'll dive kind of more into it. Like, so how do you differentiate branding an organization and creating your own personal brand? Right? What do you think? How should a founder like create a balance? Because a personal brand should be slightly separate from the organization, right? Though you are trying to sell the organization aspect of it, but you should still have your own personal brand, right? So can you throw some light there? What are your thoughts there?
Absolutely, and I don't want anyone to think that I'm like this maniacal social media person who's like cold and calculated. I'm not, but we are also running businesses, people, and so what I would say is, when it comes to the differentiation between the two, you really want to think about your brand as a CEO. I love working with small businesses because those small businesses, oftentimes, people know the person, the CEO and or founder, but they don't know what they do. So when it comes to your brand specifically, right, like, you're asking about the differentiation between the two, right? So the differentiation between the two, I would think about it more is, think about from a CEO brand, it's 3 buckets always. About 20% of that is going to be sales. But we know that consumers are more likely to buy from companies where the CEO is active on social media, and this is per, I think, an Edelman Consulting Group. So I would say for the CEO brand, that's going to be like, hey, and you can apply this to anything, y'all, whether you're a CEO of your own company, a founder, or, just of your own brand of value. Think about, what are your 3 buckets? And so those 3 buckets, it's oftentimes, one is it's the general ecosystem that you live in, right? So maybe you are test automation solution, maybe you're a Salesforce consultancy. So how are you operating within that larger ecosystem? And then on top of that, what is going to endear people to you? And I found from years and years of, managing both corporate brands, CEO brands as a ghost author and my own, that, and also mentoring 400 plus developers, etc., that what endears those decision makers to you, it's hashtag leadership. So where is the leadership story and narrative that you are telling? Maybe you're a founder who put X amount of their own savings in it, or maybe you remember the CEO and founder of Spanx is a great example of how she tells that story of having saved $5,000 and doing this all in her garage, and where she is now. Those struggles as a founder, they're so important. They endear not just the buyers of your products to you, but anyone who's aspiring to do that as well. And then from that, you have your 3rd bucket, and that's where the sales piece comes in. People say sales. I'm in marketing, so if anyone understands sales or doesn't, depends on the day of the week and how many I'm outnumbered by on a call. But I would really say it's about communicating value. I think extra syllables really, really do matter. And so that 20% is, how are you communicating that value back around a specific product? And there's authentic ways you can do that via customer voice, etc. The corporate brand is completely different. completely different. There is overlap. For the corporate brand, it's always going to be first and foremost around your latest feature rollouts. It's going to be about, new services you're offering, the customer voice from that, aka how did that make an impact for one of your clients? What were the business outcomes, whether around efficiency, cost savings, etc. The second piece from a corporate brand is always going to be around culture. So who are the humans behind the technical solutions? And then the third part is going to be more about content streams. So maybe it's some blogs that you're using for SEO. Maybe it's an upcoming event that you're doing, a conference. So the corporate brand has a completely different three-bucket brand, but they will overlap. They will overlap sometimes. The CEO is being that trustworthy voice, endearing people to the product, offering leadership, ingratiating with the decision makers, having some of that live human face-to-face interaction. The corporate brand is different, like I just shared, and the CEO can sometimes amplify some of that, but they're two different beasts.
So I think from what I heard is that the personal brand of the founder or the CEO should kind of complement the organization's brand, and it should have some element of it, right, but not completely overshadow it up, right?
Correct.
Got it. Can you maybe explain us a couple of situations or examples from your journey, right? That how a personal brand of a founder kind of led to a kind of created more impact than some other marketing initiatives it took. Any example you have in mind? We can skip this if you want.
No, I can keep it real short here. For smaller businesses that are growing, startups, the corporate brand is always going to get overshadowed by the CEO's brand.
I agree.
It's going to. People want to connect with humans, especially with this oversaturation of Gen AI content, bots, etc. Like, yes, people want the human, so it's always going to get overshadowed. You have to be ready and you have to be excited about that, because you will see consequently a uptick of people following your corporate brand. I'm leading my clients in this one particular part of my marketing services. I do a lot of other things. I love to write, but like, also love to host a great executive party. They're fun, but I would say that it's a feeder also into your corporate brand, so it will always overshadow it. Whereas it led to great outcomes. A perfect use case could be an example where, and I know I'm jumping ahead a little bit. This is not scripted, y'all. But I would say bad situation turned good was a CEO that was advised by the board to bash an open source tool that was not a competitor that we were built on top of, and advising them against that and using that to endear them to the community of open source, which then led to a conference which netted 40K net new AR from one speaking engagement, right? So like taking a bad situation to a good one. But I would say there's always going to be overshadowing. There's always going to be overshadowing. You're going to have some bad outcomes you can turn into good ones too. But yeah, I would say I've had a lot of experiences. I am ghost authoring a lot of accounts on the back end, so I can't give too much away there. Sorry, client confidentiality is actually important to me. Y'all would never know, but it is. Next question.
No worries. That was a great insight. So now I'll ask you a couple of maybe scenario based questions wherein we'll take you in a situation, right, and let's see what this has for us.
Sure.
So imagine that you are just a new founder. You registered your organization today. You have like very few founders, probably in hundreds, right? And you're kind of building it up, right? So what will be your strategy? What are the 3 steps you will take to build your brand, your personal brand as well as your organization brand?
Yeah, well, I'm going to stop you right there, dear reader, because I adore you, but one of the things that I will die, like one of my soapboxes, is everyone talks about personal branding. I hate that term. Anyone can have a personal brand, and many people shouldn't. And that's coming from someone who loves to encourage and empower people. A personal brand is whatever you want to post. A brand of value is when you are sharing content with the goal of connecting other leaders, sharing technical and or business value, and giving back to the community with the impact back for your business coming without expectation. It will. But there is a difference there. One is for you, one is for the community. So I think that's really important first. Now, okay, scenario base. I am a early stage founder.
Just kicking off.
Here we are. LinkedIn specifically, what I would say is first, join LinkedIn groups that are relative to your geolocations so that you can tap into them, and start posting, engaging, see what other people are talking about. Maybe one day you're visiting one of those conferences, and then also start joining LinkedIn groups, for future geolocation expansion. So it could be, let's take Salesforce, for example, just because, this is where we're at. So for Salesforce specifically, I'm joining maybe a LinkedIn developer group in London, because that's a future area that I want to expand. But I'm also not going to give up, my developer group in Bangalore, right? So targeting those. Then I'm going to be thinking about what are my LinkedIn groups for, the practice area and or adjacent that I can get into, like a Salesforce partners group, whatever. The next step would be to follow specific hashtags that are specific to your industry and or practice. So it could be hashtag Salesforce consulting. It could be hashtag, Agentforce. Follow those hashtags so you start seeing the content that's getting posted. What are the top trending posts? Right? Are there ones that you can engage with and ask, provide some of your own thoughts? You're also going to see the thought leaders there that are posting. Start adding them. You do not need to write a whole long, novel.
Essay.
I saw your post, right? Don't do that. Get a LinkedIn premium account if you can. It's the best money I've ever spent per month, because you can see the people that are looking at the basic version. You can see the people that are looking at your profile, and you can add the ones that you want. Determine your 3 buckets of brand value. We talked about that. So the areas that are important for you in your ecosystem, right? The leadership brand that you want to present for yourself. And then lastly, 2, that 20% around the value that your services and or products bring. Budget time per week to schedule your posts. You can do that on LinkedIn, and be mindful of the time of the week that you're posting, Tuesday through Thursday. Now, if you want to do a Friday feel good, I like to work out, happy Friday, or you want to drop like a hashtag Salesforce Saturday post, that's fine too. Those posts are more because other people aren't posting as much, but be mindful of when you're posting, and then you can schedule those. I would say to sit down for a moment and think about what are some of your past struggles as a founder, right? Maybe, again, I talked about that Spanx example. She had 5K, she saved it. Think about some of those struggles that you've had for yourself, and save any past photos that you have from, your own past events, from your teams, your product. Maybe you have a nice dashboard. What else? Oh, yeah. Start playing around with your favorite prompts on your preferred LLM, because there's a reason why per Big Village and eMarketer, 25% of respondents said they didn't trust a company that used Gen AI in their posts. Your brand of value, dear reader, is no different. So start playing around with some prompts in your preferred LLM that really start standing out to you. I have this amazing woman founder, and she's building out her own business. And one of the things that we did is we started going through an exercise to help train her GPT buddy to start sounding more like her own voice, right? Get good at Canva. It is low-hanging fruit for you. Not everything should be a Gen AI outputted image, but we do love that too. Figure out your hashtag toolkit. So your hashtag toolkit is going to make your post trend more. Some people use them, some people don't. If you're an early stage founder, you need to use these because people do follow those hashtags. And not just people, but corporate social media brands too that could be future partners with you. So that's really, 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 really important. And then once you figure out your hashtag toolkit, part of it again is industry specific. Second part is persona specific. Who is it that you're trying to communicate the value of your company services and products to? That third part endear them to you. So that's where that hashtag leadership piece comes in a little bit. Are they, are you going for like hashtag authentic leadership? Are you going to like hashtag trailblazer community because you want that to tag more? So think about those for your hashtag toolkit. And then I would say as well, be ready to have a conversation and be vulnerable. That is a really, really important thing. I know that we can talk about it later, but I think that people will be more endeared to you when they see, a mess up or they see that human behind it. I would also say have an SLA plan and boundaries. There is a reason why you're going to see increased engagement where you respond to someone's comment on your post within an hour or less. I don't make the LinkedIn algorithm rules. They're there to try and keep you online forever. But that's just honesty. But you will also burn yourself out. You won't deliver on the product, roadmap that you wanted because you're so nervous about responding. So create boundaries that work for you, but know that you need to have an SLA plan in place. I would also say create a social media board. Those people that you really trust, who are those influencers and founders, or maybe, it's a mentor. Hey, did you like this post? Is it stupid? Start doing some of that when you're just starting out. Set goals for yourself. For your follower account. You can always see this at the end of the month when you get a recap of like top impressions, etc., etc. And then I would also say too, don't be afraid to farm some engagement. People do this all the time. But don't be someone who's like, hey, would you like this post? Why would you do that? I love you, but why would you do that? No. You're playing this relationship long term because you love these people. So instead be like, hey, would you be down to like reshare, or hey, if this spoke out to you, you can leave a comment, because if you put a comment, that's going to increase visibility. But create a board. That's important. Don't be afraid to do farm engagement. I would say also too, speaking engagements are a great place to start. So always be thinking about collateral that you can put out there, but be very careful of where you speak at, because there are some companies that have asked me to do talks and I do not align with their values as a company. Because of insider information, because everyone tells me their secrets and what's left of my hair is full of them. So be careful about the brand that you associate yourself with, but speaking engagements are a great place to, amplify and increase your following. I would say as well, this is not easy. I'm giving you like a crash course in very few minutes. So I would also say, remember that in a world of content creators, again, as we see an uptick and increased rise in Gen AI, all of those terrible posts out there with people who are using too many emojis and they're like bolding the font in their posts and they're italicizing it, and then they're like, I'm thrilled, I'm elated, I'm ecstatic. I'm like, no, you're not. No, you're not.
People talking.
Exactly. But that said, take your top performing content at the end of the month and say, hey, where are the areas that I really stood out on? What were people really interested in? And then my philosophy is always, and I use this across my end-to-end B2B marketing, it's reduce, reuse, refresh. So how can you take some of that content and turn into other things? And have some fun, because it's called social media for a reason. Back to you. I'm sorry, that was a lot of information, but I think that would be helpful.
That was a good crash course, I would say, and I think the bold point we correctly pointed out with those emojis that ChatGPT kind of creates. People don't even remove it and they just copy paste out there without editing. So I think LLMs are a great buddy, but you should take inspiration from them, but not just copy and paste. Add some element of your brand to it, right?
And you also ruin your brand in the process of it. People now are seeing you more as someone who is and look, you can be an influencer. You can be an influencer who's out there using all of this, but people are going to start associating you as being less human. Are you really then going to be the person that they're going to want to talk to when they are having a really major crisis with their board and they need to talk to another founder and be like, hey, what would you do? Are they going to be a client who's going to come to you who's a little bit more introverted and is having a major technical debt issue in your organization and wants to get some consulting services from you for free. We start just with that virtual coffee. Are they really going to come to you when they see, rocket ship, join, and emoji, join this rocket ship, this is what I learned, comma, bold, stop it. Just stop it sometimes. People don't think about the long-term consequences of their actions right now because we are in such an endorphin high that we need to get affirmation externally. A CEO and founder is wired no differently. Actually, I back up. Some of them are. There are high trends of narcissistic personality disorder in founders. That's another story for another time. Did a lot of research over the summer. But I would say be very, very careful about thinking that you are different from others. As a founder of an org, or anyone who's building your own brand, you're craving those endorphin clicks. So don't go too far that way. That you're just farming clicks and engagement via these doing too much posts. Sorry, back to you.
Got it. No, that was really insightful, and so moving on, right? What are your advice? What is kind of your advice, right, to somebody, a founder who has the knowledge in his field but wants to get started as a thought leader out there on LinkedIn or maybe any other social media platform? So where should he get started from? Is it like the same commenting and posting, or is there another route he can take? What are your thoughts here? Considering he has
Well,
a decent following, I would say.
yeah. Well, so if you go through that whole checklist that we just discussed, I would say first and foremost, why do you think you're a thought leader? Is it because you have many thoughts in your head? Is it because you're an only child and your parents told you were special? Is it because you're trying to quiet the noises in your head? I don't know. But lead with a place of value first and foremost. Lead with good intention. I'm doing this because hey, I saw this in the industry and I created a product or a service to address it. This is why it's unique. I want to share that. Or I saw something happening a lot in the industry that I'm in right now, or ecosystem, and I wanted to change that. Maybe it was around Salesforce adoption. Maybe it was around improving discovery. Maybe it was around security. Whatever it is, start leading with some of your why. If you don't have a why for why you want to post other than hey, I want to make more money for my company, you're not going to work, and you're going to become one of those tech bros that loves Elon Musk, who I think is innovative. We're not going to go there, but it's a problem. You're going to go into one of those hot take tech bros who just does hot takes and makes it that personality and thinks they're a thought leader. Don't do that. I would say too is start with the human. You don't exist just online, you exist in human too. So maybe you were at a meetup and you were sharing a demo, your presentation, a talk. Start with that human in person, that lived experience there, and those humans around you, and tell that story virtually, because we do live online too. Those are some good places that you can start as a thought leader. But again, I roll my eyes when I hear thought leader, because I'm maybe it's because I'm an introvert moonlighting as an extrovert, but I think that we're all leaders. Whether we're leading projects, followings, and your teams, we're all leaders. The question is, what is your intent behind that? And I've learned from years and years of doing this that I can tell the intent pretty quickly.
So the crux is that start without an intent for the return, but just kind of sharing with the community, and then you'll see the results as you go along the way, right?
Well, not everyone, because some people are just bad social media posters, and I love you all. Sorry, being honest.
Still, the probability is high, right?
Correct. People see through BS. People see through it. I never wanted to be a eye roll thought leader. If I had it my way, I would have a home for moms who have suffered from, substance abuse issues and need to get away from their drug dealers, etc., and get them out on a farm. I know you think white savior complex, y'all, but I used to run homeless shelters, so I have real stories. We don't have time for that though. But getting them out on a farm and doing their work, I would be away from everyone. But I know that these are things that my developers, founders, women I love, test automation engineers, etc., Salesforce consultants. Like, these are skills that they need. And again, outside of just demand gen, this is one of the top skills that people need, because they're not comfortable being vulnerable. They're not comfortable being out there in the open. They're so worried about saying the wrong thing. And because of that, they ask for support. So I kind of got here because I was helping them. And I think people trust me because they know, I always say this, I love companies, but I'm always going to have people's best interest at hearts first within that organization. The customer and the customers externally. There is a balance though.
Got it. No, that's great. That was really insightful. Again, I think lots to learn from you, Tristan. So as we are on the end right of the podcast, so any closing advice you would like to share with leaders or founders who are kind of building the brands on social media platform, and how they can add more value to their business accordingly?
Absolutely. Yeah. We're talking about LinkedIn today, and I know we're specifically focused on, startups and smaller businesses. But if you are a leader at an enterprise organization and you are on the C-suite, but maybe you're not the CEO, maybe you are thinking about building a future company, start now. I never would have been able to build my own consultancy if I didn't have a huge following.
Correct.
I wouldn't have. People just wouldn't have known. It was my distribution channel. So start now. Remember, you can't build a house of trust without a foundation of time. So starting now really, 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 really matters. I would say have fun. Life is so short. Have some fun. Don't worry about, how do I say this? Don't worry about the critics too much. Do keep them in mind, keep them in your peripheral vision when you're driving, right? But do not just focus on them. When you just focus on the critics, you don't get momentum forward. Do not overly rely on Gen AI. That's really, really important. We are talking about LinkedIn smaller businesses too, but you can build followings in other places. I also got a huge migration of Salesforce people over from Twitter to Blue Sky after. We're not going into it, but I think that it's a much safer, better moderated place with community guidelines, which is why I did this. But I did that also because that's a different avenue and channel for me to learn more about those leaders that can be more vulnerable. So I learn more about products. I see people's kids, etc. So you don't just have to do this on LinkedIn, but LinkedIn is where the decision makers are. And then I would say as well, if you make a mistake, y'all, and you will, Brene Brown 101, I always follow this. It was interesting that Outlook 2023 had a CEO stat from surveys, and they surveyed 620 CEOs, including enterprise organizations. Up to 49% said they weren't ready to deal with a PR crisis on LinkedIn.
That happens.
It does happen, but I'll give you a very, very quick and easy thing to do, because I'm always ready for a PR crisis. I'm let's do this. Apologize in public. Brene Brown 101. Apologize in public, be authentic about it, and say this is what we are going to do to make it right. Do not be like certain leaders and just ignore your Salesforce ecosystem's feedback. But also remember this. You are a CEO and or founder. You have a lot of weight and pressure on you.
Got it.
From bootstrapping your organization to your family, to your own personal dreams and ambitions. You will write that book, maybe. But just remember when it comes to all of this, when you try and please everyone, you please no one. And that, I would say, is the biggest thing, other than my last piece. And again, best advice I ever got from growing up as a gay kid, locked up, had a social worker, and she told me, Tristan, never make decisions out of fear. Always make decisions out of the belief that it will better your life and your loved ones around you. So as a CEO, what I always say as a stage mom, perfectionism is fear in fancy footwear, and we ain't got the money, honey. Ship it. And that's all from me. Thank you for having me.
Thanks, Tristan. Thanks for your time today. And we are excited to probably make this podcast live, and everybody to kind of gain more insights, and specifically from the scenarios you brought up. So amazing.
Thanks for having me.